Okay, well, if you are comfortable with long division now, then we can move on to changing fractions to decimals. And it's a very easy concept. To change any fraction to a decimal, you divide the denominator, the bottom part of the fraction, into the numerator, the top part. So to change 4/5 to a decimal, I divide, the denominator becomes the divisor, and the numerator is what I'm dividing into. And now if we know our steps in long division, the first thing I have to do is divide, but I cannot divide 5 into 4 because 5 is larger than 4. But I know I can put a decimal point in zeros. And so I cannot divide 5 into 4, but I can divide 5 into 40. 5 goes into, and then I know I must put my decimal point here, right above where it is. Well, 5 goes into 40, 5, 10, 15, 20, 8 times. So I've done my division, I've divided, and after I divide, my second step in long division is I multiply, and I always multiply the last number I put up here by the divisor. So 8 times 5. 8 times 5 is 40. And now I subtract. That's the third step in long division. Well, 40 take away 40 is 0. And I could bring a 0 down, but there's no point. Well, I can bring the 0 down and then say 5 goes into 0 times. But 5, the fraction 4/5, 4/5 is really equal to 8/10. So if I change the fraction 4/5 to a decimal, I get 8/10 by dividing 5 into 4. Or it could be 8/100ths, same thing. 4/5 and 8/10 or 8/100ths are the same thing. Let's try another example. Suppose I have the fraction 5/9, and I want to change this into a decimal. Well, I know to change any fraction into a decimal, I divide the denominator of the fraction into the numerator. So 9 becomes the divisor, 5 becomes what's divided by. And I also know that 9 cannot go into 5. So I'll put a decimal point and a couple of zeros. And I know that my decimal point has to go right above where it was. Now, 9 cannot go into 5. I can't divide 9 into 5 because 9 is too big. But I can say 9 goes into 50. Now 9 goes into 50 5 times. So I've done my division. Now I multiply. So what do I multiply? I multiply the last number I put up here by the divisor. 5 times 9 is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 is 45. Now I subtract. 50, take away 45, gives me 5. And then I can bring down my 0. Now that I brought down, I have to start over again, which means I have to divide. Divide what into what? I always divide by the divisor into the last number down here. 9 goes into 50. Well, we already did that there. We know it goes 5 times. And 5 times 9 is 45. And we'll have a remainder of 5. And there's no point in putting any other zeros there. This, you can go 2 decimal places and that will be your answer. So we would say then that 5/9, the fraction 5/9, if I had to change it into a decimal, it would be 55 hundredths, because that's the hundredths place. So again, to change any fraction into a decimal, you divide the denominator, the bottom part, into the numerator. Into the numerator. Now, just one other quick thought. A lot of times you may not use long division to do that kind of a thing. You may have your calculator. So let's say this is your calculator on your phone or whatever, and you have your numbers here. And we have the fraction 6/7. Well, we know that to change this fraction to a decimal, we divide the denominator, the bottom part, into the top part. So if you were going to put it into your calculator, you would put this number first. So you would put 6, and then you would hit the divided by sign on your calculator, and then you would divide it by 7. So when you're using a calculator, it's not that it's tricky, but you have to understand, if I'm dividing 7 into 6, I have to put 6 into the calculator first, and then I am dividing by 7. And by the way, this line here really means divided by. If you see a fraction 2/3, this really means 2 divided by 3. This is a division line. So in any fraction, no matter what the fraction is, the fraction could be 128 1,263s. It means 128 divided by 1,263. So if you're using a calculator and let's say you have a fraction 13/15, and you're using a calculator, remember this is 13 divided by 15. So you put 13 in your calculator, divided by, and then you punch 15. Okay, quick review. To change any fraction into a decimal, we divide the denominator into the numerator, or 4 divided by 7. So, since it's divided by 7, 7 is out here, 4 goes here. 7 cannot go into 4 because it's too big. But we know we can put zeros. And we know we put our decimal point right up there. Now, 7 cannot go into 4, but 7 can go into 40. 7 can go into 40 5 times. So I did my division. Now I multiply. Multiply what? Multiply the last number up here times this. 5 times 7, 35. Subtract. 40, take away 35 is 5. Can bring down a 0. Now I divide again. And remember, I always divide by the divisor into the last number down here. 7 goes into 50 7 times. Now I multiply. Always multiply by the last number I put up here. 7 times 7, 49. Subtract, I get 1. And we only need to go 2 decimal places. So, if I wanted to change 4/7 into a decimal, 4/7 is equal to 57 hundredths. 57 hundredths, that's the hundredth place. Remember, if I were using a calculator, this is 4 divided by 7. So 4 would go first, then I would punch my little division sign on the calculator, and then I would put 7 in and hit equals, and I would get this 57 hundredths. Okay, well that's it. That's the lesson on changing fractions to decimals. Changing fractions to decimals. Shut off the DVD, please, and come